Well, hello everyone, and I'm hoping that you're all having excellent days wherever you are in the world. I am Daisy Chapman-Chamberlain, and I'm the Rail Knowledge Transfer Manager at KTN. KTN connects ideas, people and communities to respond to national and global challenges, specifically through innovation. So we work across business, government, funders and academia, and the third sector to achieve this, ensuring that innovations are able to succeed. Yes, please do keep your questions coming in. We're really looking forward to receiving those, as we will have several Q&A sessions throughout the webinar. As you all know, the focus of today is green railways and clean growth, which is of course key to meeting the UK's net zero target by 2050. And that emission reduction challenge is also a key global concern. And we all know that rail is absolutely vital to that push. This is enormously relevant in the context of today's release of the UK's Williams-Shapps Plan for Rail, as one of the 10 outcomes highlighted is cleaner, greener railways, stating that the railways will spearhead the UK's ambition to become a world leader in clean, green transport. So, much to think about. Without further ado, I'm very pleased to hand over to Richard Menser, Director for Trade and Investment in Central and Eastern Europe at the Department for International Trade.
Thank you, Daisy, and good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in Europe. I feel like I'm on Eurostar, not Eurostar, what's it called? Anyway, the Euro Song Contest, Eurovision rather. It is an absolute pleasure to be speaking in front of such a large and diverse audience this morning. It is very exceptional, of course, to see such high-level interest in green projects being carried out all over Europe. Today, we are privileged to have a remarkable selection of these projects from Norway, Sweden, Spain, and Switzerland. I believe this is a great initiative to bring together UK rail capabilities with opportunities throughout Europe. I would like to first thank our partner organizations, Santander UK and the Rail Industry Association, for their valuable support in the organization of this webinar. The current pandemic has shaken the world's economy to its core. It has presented huge challenges for governments and businesses alike. It has tested our resilience to the limits. This was especially true a year ago during the unprecedented number of lockdowns that happened all over the world. I have already lost count of how many lockdowns I've endured in Poland, where I'm currently based. Even prior to the health crisis, we faced a challenging global outlook in which protectionist tendencies were increasingly on the rise. The UK has recognized that we can and must seize the opportunity of building new partnerships with all our allies in Europe, recognizing the importance of green investment across the infrastructure spectrum. Rather than turning inward, countries in Europe and businesses alike should look for opportunities to diversify their international relationships. As the UK government, our ambition is to work with both the private and public sectors on projects that matter, hence the variety of speakers participating in today's event. We know that the economic recovery and the future growth of our economies will, to a great extent, depend on cleaner, greener infrastructure development. Construction, particularly transport construction, is a major driver of investment in most European countries. And the UK government, through the Department for International Trade, is working very, very closely with governments across Europe to affirm our support for future development plans. We want to promote two things. The first is the UK's capability and our experience as a global leader in infrastructure development. Second is the lessons learned from these experiences. And key to all this will be the quest for clean, green, and sustainable growth. This is, of course, a central focus for the UK as we prepare to host the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow later this year. The UK has led by example in the fight against climate change. We have seen firsthand the benefits of committing to climate-conscious growth. As emissions across our economy fell by 43% between 1990 and 2018, the UK's economy grew by a staggering 75%. Other economies have taken note of this impressive achievement. I'm greatly encouraged to hear of the increased interest from UK companies in projects across Europe and I look forward to seeing some of these projects come to fruition. As a pioneer of railway development, the UK is at the forefront of building new, bigger, and better rail systems, as well as managing and enhancing long-established networks. The UK's significant investment in rail infrastructure over the past decades has really fostered an open and competitive market in the UK, which is also a very demanding domestic market. This has driven new product and service innovation and has uniquely placed the UK and UK businesses to assist international rail clients. I speak from experience because in a previous role in the UK, I worked at the UK's Department for Transport. Our competitive home market means UK companies can ensure the best lifeline solutions, taking into account the latest global best practice and adapting it to local conditions. We also have a world-class proposition in areas of infrastructure design and planning, and we frequently lead flagship projects overseas. We are very skilled in delivering projects in complex and dense environments. As an example, at London Bridge Station in London, we are currently reconfiguring the tracks to significantly increase capacity using green technology, of course, while at the same time the train station is still open for business with over 130,000 people arriving daily during the morning rush hour. And I'm also sure that most of you have also heard about Crossrail, Europe's largest infrastructure project. Crossrail incorporates multiple links to both London Underground and our national rail network. A total of 42 kilometers of new rail tunnel was constructed using 8 giant tunnel boring machines below the streets of London. Much like these successful projects at home, the UK rail sector has also worked with partners and clients all over the world to plan, design, build, and operate advanced and sustainable railways. Crossrail International, the international arm of Crossrail, is working in association with Direct Solutions, a specialist British transport advisory firm, to provide technical advisory services relating to the planning and procurement of Toronto's new subway extension. On the other side of the world in New Zealand, Crossrail International is also undertaking an independent review of the City of Auckland's City Rail Link to help identify key project risks, issues, and opportunities. These are but a few of the exciting projects that the UK is helping to deliver all over the world. I believe green finance will be the catalyst that will spur innovation in the vibrant rail industry. And for this reason, I'm extremely grateful to Santander UK, who will be presenting on this later today. As the world recovers from COVID, I think it's critically important for Britain and Europe to forge ever stronger links and bonds of prosperity by diversifying our business networks and building more closer industry ties. So let's go forward now, side by side, build a bigger, brighter, bolder trade relationship between our countries in the form of infrastructure development. And to paraphrase our Prime Minister, let's build back better using British expertise. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Indeed, build back better. I was especially drawn to your highlighting of the pandemic as that opportunity for building new partnerships in green investment and really seeing this as a chance for us to be more open in that international context, which of course is absolutely crucial to the agenda of today. So thank you so much. We'll move straight into session 1 now, which is decarbonisation in infrastructure rail projects. And I'd like to hand straight over to Pooja Goel, Senior Advisor Climate Environment at the Norwegian Railway Directorate, and Bjorn Brina, Senior Advisor Rolling Stock Technology, also at the Norwegian Railway Directorate, and Christian Lungdahl, Swedish Transport Administration. So over to the three of you.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. I'm Pooja Goel, working as Senior Advisor, Climate and Environment with the Directorate of Norwegian Railways. I also have with me my colleague Morten Cleanest. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving us this opportunity to come and share with you our perspective on how Norwegian Railways is working towards cleaner and greener railways. Next slide, please. But before I go into the details of climate and environment, I would first like to present a very quick snapshot of the railway sector. So railway sector in Norway is run by an interplay of many stakeholders, both from public and private sector. So for example, Bane NOR, which is responsible for infrastructure and traffic management. Norsk Tog is responsible for leasing of train sets. Entur for ticketing and travel planning. And then there are a number of passenger and goods train companies that run the train services on daily basis. The Norwegian Railway Directorate is the overall coordinating authority for the railway sector, wherein it is responsible for long-term planning, purchase of passenger rail services, purchase of infrastructure services, and coordination among all the stakeholders. And all these stakeholders work together for achieving the common objectives. Next slide. And when we say common objectives, there are three main common objectives as outlined in the National Transport Plan, and that is ensuring enhanced mobility, increased transport safety, and minimizing climate and environmental effects. Now, it should be noted that railways is already one of the greenest modes of transport, and especially in a country like Norway, where it accounts for a very minuscule part of the overall emissions, just about 0.1% of country's total emissions and 0.3% of the emissions from the transport sector. However, when developing railways as a part of the overall transport system, we are committed to reducing the climate emissions in line with the country's emission reduction targets. And not only emissions, we also have a broader focus on other associated elements of the environment, which includes, for example, clean air, reduction of noise, and reducing the impact on biodiversity. So in a nutshell, we are committed to minimizing the climate and environmental effects from railways and optimizing its benefits. Next slide. And when we say climate and environment is one of the major objectives while developing railways, we cover all the aspects. So be it train operations, infrastructure development and maintenance, modern and new technology, or achieving modal shift in favor of railways. And this is first and foremost done by focusing on improving the energy efficiency and reducing emissions. So for example, when it comes to train operations, efforts are being made to further reduce the emissions from railway sector by continued electrification, for example, through the line. Efforts are also being made to ensure optimum capacity utilization of the available infrastructure. So new cross tracks are being built and existing ones are being extended so that several trains can operate on one route at the same time. And other capacity enhancing measures include establishment of train parkings, extension of platforms, ensuring renewable energy supply, and efficient control and signaling systems. Further, our infrastructure owner, Bane NOR, is facilitating energy efficiency in train operations, for example, through an energy management system called ERIX. Now, this system gives train companies the opportunity to control and manage their own energy consumption and achieve a saving of up to 30%. Further, the goods and passenger train companies are also obliged to undertake initiatives at their end to ensure continuous energy efficiency improvements as a part of their traffic operation contracts with the Directorate. And as compared to operating the trains, building and maintenance of infrastructure has relatively more climate and environmental consequences. So therefore, this is one of the biggest target area for us for achieving energy efficiency improvements and emission reductions. So the government has released a plan for zero emission construction sites in the transport sector in Norway, and railway sector is a part of it. Efforts are being made to execute a pilot for zero emission construction sites in railway sector. Efforts are also being made to develop and adopt sustainable standards in building railway infrastructure. We are also mapping the energy usage in machinery used in operations and maintenance of the infrastructure and identifying the scope of reduction in the same. There is also a focus on building the new railway facilities as climate friendly as possible. So in 2024, Norway's biggest goods terminal would be operational, which would operate at absolute zero emissions. Service contracts with vendors also make it mandatory to make greater use of electric construction machinery. The phasing in of modern trains is one of the important means of achieving energy efficiency. For example, green cargo in Norway is first in Norway and also in Europe with 2 new freight locomotives of Euro dual type. With these new and stronger locomotives, one freight train can carry as much as 30 trucks. Norsk Tog, which manages and owns the train equipment in Norway, along with the operator SJ Norway, is now testing the first of a total of 14 hybrid biomodel train sets. These hybrid train sets can run as electric trains on electrified lines as well as diesel train sets on non-electrified lines. They would then replace the diesel trains that are more than 30 years old. Norway is strongly committed to developing and deployment of innovative zero-emission technologies. So a project to evaluate zero-emission technologies on non-electrified train lines, we call it Project Nulfib, was recently executed to evaluate the feasible new technology options for deployment in the railway sector. My colleague would provide a further detailed insight into this project shortly. Next slide. And in fact, greater use of new and innovative technologies that would contribute to easier and safer transport with lower emissions is going to be a focus area even in the coming years. So the new National Transport Plan and Climate Plan also focuses on climate-related requirements in public procurement process, information on climate-friendly options, financial support for the deployment of new technologies, and initiatives to promote research and innovation and zero-emission technologies. So now I hand over to my colleague Bjorn Brine, who would present the project Zero Emission Technologies on Non-Electrified Train Lines. We call Project Nulfib in greater detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. I'm pleased to be getting this opportunity to present our findings when we studied how to, which technology to go forward or we should go forward with getting rid of the greenhouse gases on the remaining non-electrified line in Norway. Norway has mainly an electrified network. Around 80% of the total energy usage on the railway is electric, the remaining being diesel. What we did was that we chose to make a case study on one of the non-electrified lines, and for that we chose the Nordland line with the philosophy that if it works there, it will work everywhere. Nordland line is 728 kilometers long, has 154 tunnels. And which we discovered during the process was that several of these tunnels is designed so that they are to drain water out of the tunnel, meaning that the highest point of the tunnel is in the middle, which might become a problem when you are running on flammable gases that are lighter than air, because they might collect in the middle of the tunnel. It should also be said that the Nordland line is very demanding, has very demanding climatic conditions. If you saw the picture under my name presentation, that picture was taken in August. What we studied was hydrogen, biogas, biodiesel, batteries, full electrification, and a mix between electrification and use of batteries. I'm sorry. There. That's the null line. I'm sorry, I should have forwarded the images. As you see in the middle there, the Arctic Circle crosses. And here's the technologies we studied. What we found was that the solution with the most socioeconomic potential was an intermittent electrifications using batteries between the electrifications, where we take use of the additional power that's possible to take out of the catenary compared to just running the train. So we could use that, or can use that to charge batteries while running. The first study, or the first outlook for the Nordland line was around 8 sections with electrification, and the rest non-electrified, running on batteries. We see that it's important to try to avoid tunnels and other costly parts when you electrify, so that you keep the investment costs down. The upper part of this image is the vertical profile of the line, and you see on the right hand side in the north we are climbing over a mountain. We think that we need to electrify more than for charging here, because if we want to harvest the brake energy, we will probably have to feed some of the energy back to the network, because we will fill the batteries faster than we could or more than the batteries has capacity. That was my presentation. I would say thank you and hand over to Christian.
Yes, thank you. Let's have a look at my slides. If you can move them for me. Thank you. Thank you for being here. My name is Christian Ljungdahl, and I'm representing the Swedish National Transport Administration and New Main Lines, which is the name of our high-speed program, and is by far the largest infra project in Sweden ever. I think we can say that we will have a turnover of around 30 billion euros for the coming 20 years. And also I know that lots of suppliers are here. The large procurements of the detailed design parts will start in a couple of months in Sweden, starting with the railway system best. And I want to also to stress that the main climate challenge is to heavily reduce the carbon emissions from the concrete and the steel and from all the building transports that we will have. That is our big challenge, and I will tell a bit about that. We go to the next picture to see what new main lines are. Here you can see Sweden in the map, and you can see that there are 3 parts with stronger lines. And if you go straight up to the right, you have the East Link part that is under preliminary design now, will enter the detailed design part in this autumn. And we call it the East Link. It will have a probable turnover around 8 billion Swedish crowns, euros, sorry, 8 billion euros. And we are going furthest in this part. And then you go to Gothenburg to the west, and you go to Malmö to the south. And in these parts, we are in the localization studies. We have started new main lines in the city parts of Sweden. And then you see the dotted lines between. You see Jönköping, Tranås, Värnamo. Those areas, those lines are not started yet, not even with the localization studies. And as you see, the East Link, as you see on the text to the left, we start with the detailed design by the procurement of the rail design this October, November, I think will be a possible business around 40 or 50 billion euros over 10 years. Then going on in 2022 with the procurement of 2 large tunnels, Kolmården and Tullgarn, around 7 or 8 kilometers long, around 320 or 30 billion euros each. So during the coming year, you will see large, heavy procurements of the detailed design for the East Link. And that's for the East Link. And then if you go to the west, we call it Gothenburg-Borås. You can see the text down to the left here. We have the localization part going on to 2022. Then we have the planning, railway plans going on for a couple of years. The detailed design, perhaps 2024, I would say. And the same thing goes for the south. And let us say that the production, the operation, the construction of the whole system, the East Link will be first. I think you can say that by 2025, you will start with the first procurements of constructions. So, and then the below figure here, the figure for the whole scheme will turn over around 30 billion euros, which was 295 million crowns. Yes, and now we change to the next slide, please. And here you can see the European corridor. We are part of it. And you can see the reductions of time when we have inaugurated all this. And we say that 2035 is the year when we hope that we, through new main lines, through the Öresundsbridge, through the Fehmarn Belt connection, that we can reduce the travel times as you see here. You see Copenhagen there, you see Stockholm, Brussels from 24 hours today to 12 hours. We're talking about dramatic figures, meaning that taking the night train will be possible. The night train zone have been really enlarged by this plan. And also from Gothenburg, Gothenburg is in the west, you see Gothenburg, Hamburg, real reduction of times, Gothenburg, Brussels, large reduction of times. And I think we move to the next picture. And I will give you some words about what is really big and the theme of this session, the carbon impact. That we have a whole life perspective when it is about the carbon impact on the new main lines, meaning that we add the impacts from carbon when you build it, when you maintain it, and when you run it. And it's the whole sum, the whole impact when you add these things together that has to be positive. And what you see now in the picture are the reduction goals, the climate reduction goals that the Swedish National Transport Administration have until 2045. Sweden is to be climate neutral 2045, meaning that in 2025, if you see there, we have to reduce our carbon emissions by 30%, 2030 by 50%, 2035 by 80%, meaning that when we go into construction phase, the concrete and the steel has to really, the offers that we get has to include figures, materials where you see carbon reductions of 30 or 50% in the materials of concrete or steel, and of course in the building transports. And then when you go to the maintenance phase, it is also the same. What about when you start to run the system? When you start running the system, what will the impact be? We have a whole life perspective, meaning that you will have a positive impact from people changing from air to rail. Yes, definitely. But perhaps people think that when people are changing from car to train, when we put this into operation by 2040-45, I can say that the net climate impact will actually be zero. And that is because the cars will be, in our models, we calculate that the cars will be electrified by then. So even though people are changing from car to rail, the climate impact will be around zero, because we compare rail to electrified cars, and then we don't get that kind of impact. So that means that we have a tough journey to manage to get to a positive whole life cost perspective, which is positive, a cost estimate when it's about the climate. But therefore, if we manage to succeed with the reductions that are shown there, that is a condition to manage. If we don't succeed with those reductions, then the climate impact of building this railway, maintaining this railway, and using the railway still will not get to the break-even point. So the climate impact will be neutral. But that means, and we'll go to the next slides, that what we now are doing in the procurements soon, if we change the slide, I will show you what this really will mean to us. Let us say that we have to put the requirement, sorry, if you go back to the first slide, the first figure, I can show you. Here. Let us say that we have a technology transfer with the concrete right now. We have to change technology to carbon reduced concrete, but that also in the coming years means that you will have a larger cost of the whole project, because you are changing from one technology to another. And we count or estimate that the project increase cost will be roughly 2.5 to 7% due to this. And of course, when time goes on and you increase the volumes of the new concrete and the new steel, then of course, as in all new technologies, price will go down. But initially, we count that there's a price for getting this technology transfer to climate neutral concrete. That is the figures that you see there. And we also include that now in our cost estimations. Now we go to the next picture, and that will show you what we really think that we should do. How do we actually manage to do this? I actually start with dot 2, because that is the core thing. Now is the time when we procure the detailed design, when we procure the operation, the production and the construction, then it is not enough setting goals. It is not enough setting bonuses. We will put up quality, we will put up requirements for the concrete, targets and requirements, what concrete is to be used in our constructions. Meaning, we think that the earlier we do this and the earlier we clarify this to the market, then we make it possible for the market to make this change of technology. So hopefully we will be very clear on this within a couple of months, what will be the quality requirements, for instance, as for concrete. But of course, the other topics here, as you see, are important. Of course, we have to put up the climate agenda actively in the projects. We do it already, but it will take more from us. And of course, we have to clarify our strategies for the climate compensation. Never forget this tool also to work with, that we compensate for the emissions that we do, or the actions that will take place there. And that is, of course, a very large part in the project. But I want to stress number 2 here, that will be what you actually will notice, actually how we will put up the requirements for the heavy emissions from concrete and steel and transports. Well, I think it was roughly about all. And welcome if there are any suppliers here to tender. We start this autumn, hopefully, and then we will go on in a high speed during the coming years. Thank you very much.
Superb, thank you all. It's great to hear about the hybrid train and the infrastructure work taking place in Norway. And I think that balance with the electrification and the other technologies, so in the UK, we've got a lot of hydrogen work going on at the moment, is something that we definitely share. And similarly with Sweden, that push to reduce the emissions from construction, the whole life look, I'm thinking about composites and design and the elements within this, somewhere that international innovation collaboration can have real impact. So thank you so much. That was really interesting. I will hand over now to Paul van Donink at Jernhusen. Over to you, Paul. Everything okay, Paul?
Yeah. I'm here. I'm just going to pull up my slides for you. I hope you can see those now.
We're still waiting for those to come up. I'm very much enjoying your background, though.
Okay.
Beautiful. We'll just wait for the slides to come up.
Yeah. Are they there now? Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, well, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. Thanks for having me. My name is Paul van Donink. I work for a Swedish public limited company called Jernhusen. We are a real estate company owned by the Swedish state, but we operate on a purely commercial basis. So we are not financed through the government's budget. We own real estate along the Swedish railway system. That was a part of Sweden's decision to liberalize the transportation market, also the railway market, already during the 1980s. And in 2001, one of the steps in that process was to separate the assets in terms of railway stations, maintenance depots, freight terminals, and also the land that previously belonged to the National Railway Company, SJ, to separate that and to put it into a separate company that would be neutral and then operate those assets, develop those assets as over time. So when we were founded in 2001, we bought all of that real estate at market value at that point in time, and we have since then been working with that portfolio. One of the goals that our owners have with us as a company is that our real estate needs to contribute to more usage of sustainable mobility in Sweden. And that is, of course, our owners, they put those demands on us, but also if you extend the ownership, as we are a government-owned company, our owners are actually all citizens in Sweden, and they also want to be sustainable. We see a very big push in Swedish society. Well, you probably all have heard of Greta Thunberg, who actually has a global reach. That movement in Sweden has really grown strong to think about how we live our lives and, of course, also how we move about. So travelers want to be sustainable. They want to use sustainable modes of mobility, but they also put very high demands on us as an actor. They want us as a company to be sustainable as well in what we do. I think this is a kind of picture that you recognize from many cities and countries around the globe. You see that cars have taken over cities. This is a picture of the central station in Stockholm and its surroundings. You see that it is all entangled it's strangled by a network of roads and cars. And well, the rhetorical question is this what we want? And of course not. This is not how we want our future to develop. So we need to do things about this. We believe that creating attractiveness, if we want people to get out of their private cars and on board more sustainable modes of transport, public transport, we need to make sure that that offering we have is attractive. And we believe that, of course, we as a real estate owner, as for example a station owner, we cannot do this on our own. We need to be part of the larger package that creates that attractive offering to consumers. It all starts with a multimodal mobility offering. It's not enough to have a station where trains can stop and start. People need to get to the station, get from the station. That whole idea of first and last mile is well known, but we believe this is key to creating a relevant transportation offering. We need to really make sure that that is multimodal. In our way of thinking, when we welcome all actors to our stations. We think that the more the merrier is the motto that we need to live with. So any mobility operator that wants to connect to our railway stations and thereby increase the freedom of choice for travelers is welcome. And the bigger that offering is, the better it will be. Secondly, of course, the station design and the service offering in that station needs to support that multimodal offering that will operate around that station building. We need to think about how different modes of transport are placed, what things they need to do their thing, and so on. Also to complement not only just the mobility offering, but to complement it with services that travelers and visitors like. You talk about retail, you talk about other types of services that simplify people's daily lives. But there is a third force that needs to pull in the same direction, and that is the station area. You could have the best mobility offering in the world at a world-class station, but if that station is located in the wrong area, or if the area does not support the attractiveness, we're not going to succeed. So that station area needs to be attractive. It needs to contain destinations for the people to go there. Give them a reason to be in that area, and of course, it needs to be welcoming and safe. The way we try to offer that is to make sure we look at 5 dimensions, and we look at those from the traveler's point of view. Of course, a station needs to be a well-functioning transport node in order to motivate people to use it. It, of course, needs to be a safe and secure and accessible place for all, and it needs to have an interior that's functional and attractive. We constantly monitor those aspects in the portfolio of stations that we manage. And then, given the context that station is in, of course, you always need to look at what services are lacking in the area, and can we place those inside the station in order to make that place even more relevant to people, for people to go to, so that they believe that, well, I can not only just transport myself from A to B, but I can also do my shopping or visit the doctor's office or whatever people would like to have in that area. And then that ties into the aspect of having this station and its close surroundings well integrated into the city. It needs to be a total package. So we truly believe that it's not enough to just focus on transport. You need to look at it from a city perspective. We launch a number of projects in the big cities to really make all of this happen. We currently have a huge project ongoing in Stockholm, where we are planning to build on top of the tracks. We are currently in a phase where there is a parallel commission ongoing with 4 international teams of architects and engineers that are now working on 4 parallel proposals. That will be the input. The winner of that competition will be the input into the continued zoning plan that is being developed for the area. We have projects ongoing in Gothenburg and Malmö as well. And what is common for all of these projects that we have is that we take a holistic approach to sustainability in the requirements that we place on partners that participate in these projects. We have very specific demands on what materials are to be used, what goals are to be achieved, and so on. And of course, it needs to promote all of these things that you see on this slide. So it needs to, of course, help people choose green mobility. It needs to support a cohesive city and so on. That's about it for my presentation. You will, of course, if you have any further questions, you're always free to post those in the chat or contact me afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Really fascinating work. And I think that reference that you made to the citizen and the passenger sustainability desire is definitely another shared community piece. So in the UK, 79% of our young people said that they were concerned about environmental issues. So as there are future passengers, our current and future passengers, having that attractive, holistic, city-centered offer that you were mentioning, including sustainability, is definitely a real international push. So thank you so much for your time. And now for all of our speakers, we'll move on to the Q&A. So this will be open. These questions are open to everyone who we've had speak so far. I will kick off with one from Derek Lawrence, who has a game-changing acousto barrier product, a fraction of the weight, water and CO2 emissions of current concrete system with better performance, but he's unsure of who to share this with. So the question to the panel is, what do you feel is the best platform to champion this genuinely exciting project that can help with carbon objectives? So that platform and sharing question, I think, is what Derek is getting at here.
If I may, very quickly jump in. Derek, if you could please get in touch with me, I'll put you in touch with my relevant leads in the Department for International Trade across Europe, who are leading on all sorts of projects on infrastructure, transport development, and you'll be able to put this very exciting project to the relevant people across Europe. So please do get in touch and I'll make sure that it's put to the relevant people across Europe. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. You can't really get a better answer than that, can you, Derek? Ideal. And I think for me then, maybe thinking about this in a slightly more general context, linked slightly to Derek's question, is that role of innovation. And for me, particularly for smaller companies, in the decarbonisation, in infrastructure piece, of course, we're looking at enormous work here. These are enormous pieces of work in a national and international context, but of course, the role of smaller companies is crucial. So do any of our speakers want to come in on how do we ensure that smaller companies are able to effectively connect into the system? How can we maximize their input and their impact? What role do they have to play in these grand global challenges that we have set?
Could I start?
Please do.
I think that the small companies, that if you talk about these large transport systems, and if you look at the large clients such as the transport administration that I represent, we want to see us as a client who define the conditions and that we do it in a due time so that the market can adapt. That means that the small innovative companies, I think that the best thing you can do is to get into cooperation and connection with the subcontractors, with the contractors actually, or the designers, to get into real partnerships. And I think as for these large transport systems and procurements that we will do, I think that, I mean, it will be a piece of the cake to everyone. But I think you have to get into the actual contractors who's going to do the work.
Absolutely, I completely agree. That collaboration approach and that mutual support is really important to the kind of supply chain there. We have a really interesting question from Michael King. Could we please discuss how you balance the needs of freight and passenger rail? Is it better to take lorries off the road? How do we balance that? How do we manage the trade-offs between passenger and freight? Always an interesting question if anyone wants to come in on that balance piece.
I can give you a general answer. What happens, let's see new mainlands as an example. What we actually are doing now is that we are creating a new transport system, new tracks, new capacity, which is limited for passenger traffic, meaning that we will have this impact from passenger traffic, which will impact the climate. But what will happen with the old tracks? The old tracks will be dedicated to the freight traffic. So I think that the answer to that question is that both are very important now. And new mainlands is not a system for passenger traffic. You should include the impact that it will have on the freight traffic because it will use the old capacity, the old tracks. And what happens then is that the capacity increases on the old tracks. You will have no bottlenecks left. Time will go, it will go quicker, making the transports, meaning that the freight traffic on rail will be more competitive since the transports are quicker, it gets in less expensive then. And then you can get the freights on the track. So these things are very linked together when I'm talking about new mainlines.
Brilliant, thank you. Does anyone else want to come in on the freight and passenger side of things?
If I may, very quickly as well, just a thought on this. I think there's a lot that the rail industry can perhaps learn from the aviation sector. I know the carbon emissions from the aviation sector is huge compared, of course, to rail, but most aviation, most of the industry, most planes that are carrying passengers also carry huge load of goods that are carried from A to B. So if we can find a way to combine trains that can carry both load and passengers at the same time, we kill two birds at the same time. But I think there's scope for innovation to create these very specific trains that could do both jobs at the same time.
It's definitely an interesting piece, and having those conversations around the west coast of the UK has definitely been a really interesting one as well. Sorry, was someone else coming in there?
I think I should say that what we have looked into, or the line we have looked into, is very low density, and we need to combine the needs for the freight and the passenger traffic to make the line sustainable at all. Without running both kind of traffic on the lines, they are not, in this part of Norway at least, sustainable. We should actually close them if we don't combine passenger and freight on the line. For the zero emission study, what we found was that the demand of the freight is much more, or the needs of the freight traffic is much more demanding than for the passenger. So if you could make an infrastructure that's capable of running freight trains, there will be no problem in running passenger train on the same infrastructure there. But the speed will be, as it is on that line, very, very slow for a passenger train.
Thank you so much. We are at time for this particular session now, so thank you so much to all of our speakers from session 1. And we will now move on to session 2, which is innovative propulsion systems in rolling stock and the view from operators. And we will be kicking off with Alfredo Gonzalez, Head of Innovation Boosting at Talgo.
Well, good morning. And first of all, I would like to thank the organization for counting with Talgo in this very interesting occasion. I think this raises an important point. There is pardon, I have some echo on the background. Yeah. Okay. So I was saying this is a very important point, and is to put the railway at the very center of mobility. If we are thinking about a decarbonized society, or at least a low carbon society, I don't know if you can see my presentation. Okay, no, thank you. And connecting with this matter, I think it's worth saying that railway is for sure, and it was said before, the cleanest mode of transport. And in my opinion, it will remain this way for a couple of reasons. First of all is the usage of electric traction motors that has been broadly used during the last decades. And it could be for sure the mode of transport that has used it for longer years and has more experience. So this means very low level of losses, so a high efficiency. And on the second hand, there is another question, is the very low friction level between the wheel and the rail, since both of them are metallic. And this is an inherent question that will remain this way and ensures a very low level of rolling resistance. So if we speak about this, and it's very well known that at European level, transport means or account for 25% of gas emissions, while railway only represents 0.4%. So somehow we can say the contribution of railway is negligible. Maybe it's not something very appealing to say those days, but what we can be sure is that we are starting from a very good position. We are the best position there. And from this point of view, within Intargo, we focus the decarbonization process through 4 main pillars you can see on the right side. First of all is manufacturing and designing lighter trains. For sure, the masses has a great impact on energy consumption, and this becomes much more important when you are speaking about higher speeds. So generally speaking, our trains, Targo trains, are between 20 to 25% lighter than our competitors. And this means a lot. On the second side, there is also working on increasing efficiency, working on the main contributors, main consumers in the train, that are the traction and the HVAC for sure, and especially in high-speed trains or long-distance trains. Also in driver assistance systems that works together with the driver for ensuring the lowest level of consumption along the traveling. First is reducing the environmental impact, and in this box is where probably the hydrogen fuel cell is belonging to. But besides this, we are also thinking on emissions in terms of noise. And this is becoming much more important nowadays, since the trains are running faster and the people is becoming to live closer and closer to the surroundings of the tracks. So it's a very important question for us. And finally, maybe it could be strange for some of you, it's the attractiveness, but it was introduced by some of my speaker colleagues before. And we think that it doesn't mean how efficient the train can become if we don't make possible a real shift to rail from passengers from other transport modes. So if we really want to reach a overall impact at society level, we need to attract passengers to the train. And we work on this through improving, enhancing the passenger experience, what is very, very key topic for us in the last years. And speaking more specifically about hydrogen, there is a couple of questions we want to solve here. The why, it seems that we, as I said, come from a good point as we are electrified, but nowadays at UK level and also in European level, there is a high number of tracks non-electrified. The figures in UK represent that 62% of the routes are non-electrified, what means more than 1.3 thousand kilotons of CO2 emissions per year, what is a huge amount, and give us a good room for improvement. And the easy answer could be to go for electrifying the tracks, but this is most of the time not cost efficient, since we think on the average cost per kilometer, that in UK is in average £1 million per kilometer electrified. So this places a good scenario for jumping to the hydrogen. That seems the best case for substituting the diesel trains that are the one that cover this sort of tracks. This way, at European level, some research, market research, shows that for 2030, the 20% of new trains, new multiple units, will be hydrogen-based. So this shows a nice picture for investing in this, frankly speaking. And more in detail, if we speak about Talgo, how we approach to this challenge. We are currently developing an hydrogen train, but it's an hybrid hydrogen train that would be pioneering this sort of technology once we put it on tracks by the end of this year. And we're tackling this challenge, as I said, on two phases. We are actually on the first phase that is ongoing since 2019, and is developing a traction train on a prototype, using a prototype train for testing the traction based in hydrogen. And on the second phase, there will be a hope from this prototype train to the serial train, where we will put on tracks a commuter train for passenger based on the technology we have tested in the first stage. And more in detail, the first stage that is to work on this demonstrator will be based on an already manufactured Talgo train that is a prototype, and will join together an electric locomotive that can work using the electricity coming from the overhead line, that will be joined with some trailed coaches, where we're gonna put all the pieces of equipment that will make the train hydrogen based. So we will put together the hydrogen fuel cells, the tanks, the piping, the safety systems, the batteries, and the energy flow control system. So this train will work independently on the overhead lines and using the hydrogen technology on the non-electrified lines. It's very paramount for us to test the energy flow control in this project, but it's very challenging as we are developing this dual train. As I said before, we are currently manufacturing this prototype that is expected to be on track by November this year. And through a 3 to 4 months test, we will prove everything works properly. We will gather some lessons learned, and this will be the proper basis for going to the second stage. As I said before, this second stage means manufacturing commercial trains for passengers for regional lines. That is so-called the Vital-1, Talgo Vital-1. And as you can see here on the top of the slide, we will move from the stage 1, where all the pieces of equipment are placed all along the trailed coaches I was referring before, and we will join all them together, putting within a module car, hybrid power module car, that can easily be joined with the rest of the commuter train. So this new commuter train will be able to run both on electrified and non-electrified lines, with a maximum speed of 200 kilometers per hour, walking on the overhead lines, while using the hydrogen traction power can reach up to 160 kilometers per hour, with a range of 800 kilometers, what is probably the key point here, and what makes the hydrogen very competitive in terms of substitute of diesel. We, as said before, we want to develop this an scalable solution, so we can tune in the needs of the fuel cell, the amount of tanks, to the requirements of our future customers, so we can adapt the train easily, just making some improvements or some changes in the hydrogen power model car. And we can add to different needs of ranges, power demands, and so on. So this will be what we so-called plug-and-play solution, and can also easily replace diesel power modules. So it is envisaged that this can substitute the commuter train that are based on this diesel technology. We have few new next challenges for sure. This is brand new technology within the railway sector. There is a very short experience within this. And there is a matter of railway standards at railway level. We have some standards coming from other transport modes that have largest experience in terms of hydrogen usage, like the buses. And some of these standards are being used for these deployments. But what is desirable is that we properly develop a railway level standards. And on the other hand, there is also some works in which we need the cooperation of infra managers and railway operators, and is adapting the infrastructure of refueling, and also some works in terms of maintenance depots, because this new technology for sure demands new way of working at certain level, and this will demand some changes in the depot we already know. So, well, this is everything from my side, and I'm open to any question. So thank you very much.
Marvelous, thank you. And I have to say, I really liked that combination focus of the lightweighting, the efficiency, the environmental impact piece alongside the attractiveness. So for us at the moment, of course, drawing passengers back to rail as well as accessing those new passenger markets is, of course, really crucial. And that real hydrogen push that you mentioned as well is something we share in the UK. So we're even at the moment looking at converting steam locomotives to hydrogen. So there's a lot of really interesting work going on in the space. So thank you so much. We'll move straight on to Ralph Warwell, UK Sales Director for Stadler. Over to you, Ralph.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me well. And
we can. Thank you, Ralph.
Okay, very good. So my name is Ralph Warwell. Thanks very much to the Department for International Trade to invite us here. And Alfredo's presentation matches a lot of what I'm going to say. So that's obviously, we can identify clearly that this is the spirit of the time. And so therefore, I would like you to maybe move to the next slide if you can. So Stadler Rail, just a few words to us. We are a company founded in 1942 in Switzerland, expanded to various countries all over the world with manufacturing sites in different European and non-European countries, as well as maintenance sites, as you see on the maps. And for the UK, it's quite relevant. Our headquarter for the service sector in the UK is in Liverpool, whereas we have maintenance depots in Newcastle, Glasgow, Sheffield, Norwich, and Cardiff. So, and we have a total number of employees these days of around 12,300 employees. Please to the next slide. In terms of product, a bit similar to Alfredo's presentation. So there's high-speed trains, there are regional trains in all sorts of forms and shapes. There are bespoke, tailor-made trains, you know, rack and pinion trains that crawl up the mountains. There are metros, coaches, so quite broad range. Having said that, most of them are kind of hybrid trains. So we always tend to use electric drive for traction, even though if the electricity comes from diesel or came from diesel in the past, but I go to that a bit later on. So please to the next slide. In the past, of course, we talked about zero emissions and batteries, and Stadler's heritage, let's say, as being a producer of unique customized rolling stock solutions, has already brought some experience starting back to 1943 with battery technology. But again, we over the years continued, but as you can see on the timeline there, only in the recent years, the battery technology has picked up by our customers, by the different governments that we're working with. And so we have developed various solutions, which I'm going to try to introduce to you in a moment. So please to the next slide. The next slide, please.
Hi, Ralph. We're currently on slide 6. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can't see it. No, on slide. I still have slide 4. Sorry for that.
It's okay.
It's okay. So let's. I have the paper print here, so classic, old school. So our contracts in the UK are mostly sort of hybrid contract, as mentioned before. So we have, for example, the Greater Anglia fleet, whereby 35 of the units operating there are basically bi-mode trains. So they have the capability of running electrically under the wire with the use of the pantograph, but at the same time, a power pack integrated, a bit like Alfredo mentioned earlier, with diesel engines included. So the passengers don't have to change the mode of transport when the overhead wire is gone, and can continue with the same train to their destination. The same is happening also on the freight side. So there are some pictures of our recent freight deals, and there are some freight locomotives that are diesel electric, but also this year we've been able to sign up a deal for tri-mode locomotive, which have a diesel engine, overhead wire, as well as the battery capability on board. Again, mirroring the spirit of the time. So I think we are all, and as Alfredo said as well, we are really feeling the need for changing the ways of the working of the rolling stock of the railway in general. So you may move to the next one, please. I guess you have. So I would like to explain to you where we came from with on the basis of our regional train concept that's called the FLIRT train. FLIRT means something, so it's a fast, light, innovative regional train. But of course, it means something else as well, which is good because you get closer to your passengers, closer to your customers. So that's for the word. So the FLIRT, if we move to the next slide, the FLIRT is an EMU train as a basic product. And we wanted to offer these EMU trains to the UK as of around 2015. However, at that time, the government has decided to pause the electrification, and therefore the EMUs weren't as in demand anymore. So that's why we came up with the idea of integrating into our EMU our own power plant, which we call the power pack, in which we put diesel engines and generators to create the electricity needed to drive the trains. As mentioned earlier before, for the Anglia fleet, which was the first contract we had, we have been able to use the whole network without changing trains. And on the other hand, by saying that, you don't run diesel trains under overhead wire. So that was quite, at the time, an innovative system. And we've been successful in selling those elsewhere as well. So if you go to the next page, you have a photograph of that particular power pack, which is basically housing the diesel engine traction equipment and is producing the electricity to drive those trains. Of course, these diesel engines are having or fulfilling the latest environmental standards. But again, we understood all with the requirements and the targets, the green targets we all have been given, that we can't continue with diesel for much longer. Absolutely. So therefore, Stadler has continued to develop its product. And if you go to the next slide, you see our solution that we have offered and in the end have been able to sell for the Wales and Borders franchise, a tri-mode train. So this FLIRT, again, it's a basic EMU, has a power pack in the middle, but this time we are not only having a diesel engine in there, but we also have batteries in there. So the idea is simply, if you run the train under the wire, you charge the batteries and use the electricity for propulsion. If you are coming into an area where you have to bridge a certain gap of electrification, non-electrified lines, you just cross over by the battery, and if needed, you have the support of the diesel engine. So if you go to the next slide, you can see how it looks roughly inside. So if this is an image of the power pack on the left-hand side, you can see on the right in the middle, a power pack symbolizing the 4 diesel engines installed. On the right-hand side and on the lower end, you can see the three blocks of battery cells installed for the Wales train. And the idea there is that once the electrification ends, you can continue about up to 30 miles with this train and back to not have the need to electrify the lines, as we have heard earlier. Electrification is an expensive matter, and therefore we have put the worry of the electrification of the infrastructure into the train and solve the problem via these solution of the batteries on board. Okay, the next one, please. This technology then has been developed further, also on the demand of the political agendas in the various countries, to a battery concept, entirely battery concept of a flirt. So we have been able as Stadler to sell 55 of 2-car battery flirt units to the north of Germany. Again, it's an electrical train, can be charged under the wire, but also has the capabilities with onboard batteries to run up to 80 kilometers in service, including stops and with a decent acceleration. Okay, please, next one. So now here we come to the matter that also has been addressed before. Hydrogen, again, is high on the agenda these days. Of course, if it can be produced economically cheap or for a good price, it can be a good game changer in the future to replace diesel and run on non-electrified lines. Again, here we started with the idea of having an electric train, having a power pack in the middle, as you can see. This power pack will have fuel cells and tanks. There will be batteries close to the hydrogen power pack on the right-hand side, as you can see here, whereas the propulsion units will remain as they are in EMU. There will be a pantograph. So again, automatically a bi-mode train that can serve basically best parts of the world. So if there is an overhead wire, you run it on the wire. If you come to a non-electrified line, you would run it on hydrogen. If you go to the next slide, please. Again, just to visualize the system, a 2-car train, let it be 3-car, just as an example, you have the power pack that you add in the middle, and you run it as a hydrogen or bi-mode train in this case. And again, you may reverse that process, of course. Once your line is electrified, you may take the power pack out and run it again as a pure EMU. So you have the flexibility. Whether this is done in the future, it remains to be seen. However, it is a possibility that we would offer our customers with our product. Again, range can be, obviously depending on the amount of hydrogen on board, as well as the route profile. But we believe that we can go 600 kilometers a day with one filling of the hydrogen. Okay, next one, please. Bit more detail on the power pack concept. So the power pack as such is not just sort of a locomotive in the middle, but it is actually a little or short car body that is left and right of a gangway filled with the equipment needed to run without overhead wire. And here you can see we would have sort of fuel cells on one corner of the power pack, as well as hydrogen tanks on the other corner, cooling system, all sorts of different devices that you would need. And we would produce the required energy that we need for running those trains, while passengers can still walk through the train. So there's no blockage or anything. You just walk through that power pack, and you would probably even not notice once the train is either under the wire or running with its own power. Okay, next one, please. The first contract we have for that kind of train has been received in 2019 with an order from SBCTA in California, where we are currently designing and soon starting building the first flirt hydrogen bi-mode train. And again, this is a very specific, unique train. The car bodies left and right of the power pack, if you see the image here, is the same as for the diesel flirt order we have with SBCTA. So we can maintain the same technology and add the power plant in the middle in the form of a hydrogen power pack. And the customer required a range of about 300 miles a day under sometimes very hot conditions. So there's quite a load and a strength onto the system due to HVAC systems and due to the door opening cycles in the very hot weather there. But this train is starting commissioning in 2022. And we hope that we can sell some more of those units in the future. Go to the next one, please. Another solution and an interesting concept from the customer point of view was the WINK project in the Netherlands, where Arriva has ordered in 2018 a bimode train, diesel and electric, with the demand that we commit ourselves to change those diesel trains in the future to a zero emission train. And so that shows at the time that we weren't quite there with the battery technology then, but we are there now. So at this point in time, we are starting to take the combustion engines out, replace them with battery to make this product a zero emissions unit to run on all lines in the Netherlands. Okay, next one, please. Coming back to the UK, part of the Wales and Borders franchise order were also a couple of tram trains, 36 in total. And they have the special feature that, again, they have been equipped with batteries, so that there are certain non-electrified sections, mainly due to historic tunnels or bridges, whereby an overhead wire wasn't possible or was not economically possible to put along the lines. So this battery on board will bridge these gaps of the intermittent electrification, and we can run up to sort of 5 miles independent and charge after that once we have the overhead wire back. Quite a clever solution if you think about the savings in infrastructure cost if you don't have to dig out a tunnel or lift bridges or also all sorts of infrastructure objects. Okay, go to the next one, please. Mentioned earlier, in January this year, we have signed a contract with ROG for the supply of tri-mode locomotives. We had heard the questions earlier, how about the split passenger travel and operation versus freight? Freight, of course, is very important and remains a very important factor in our daily life. And so therefore, the development of bimode and tri-mode locomotives, I think, or we think, is vital. And with this locomotive here, we have been able to develop a tri-mode locomotive that uses the battery that is on board to boost the rather small diesel engine with additional electricity, as well as use the battery as a last mile mode. So again, this could be something whereby once cities declare their city as a clean air city, you are not allowed to go in with diesel propulsion. You may go in with the battery on that locomotive and pull your freights into the station. So that's the latest development. And if you go to the last slide, there's a picture of a class 777. That's our train for Liverpool for the Mersey travel operation. And this train is basically a pure EMU running with third rail application. However, the customer has asked us to integrate some batteries in there to extend their network. And that's what we've done. And we're going to showcase this train, including the batteries, at the Rail Life exhibition on the 16th of 17th of June in Long Marston. So come along and have a look and potentially have a ride on that train. So thank you very much for your attention, and yeah, happy to respond to questions. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really like that custom focus that's really come through in your presentation. Of course, no two networks are the same, no two lines are the same, so it's great to see that variety in passenger and freight. I absolutely love the name Flirt Train, getting closer to your passengers indeed. And I will also see you at Rail Live. So I will
very good.
Along. and have a look. Unfortunately, we don't have time for our Q&A session, but we'll do our best to share the questions. And I would really encourage anyone who wants to get in touch with any of our speakers to do so directly if they have the details, or through the Department for International Trade to find out more, because we do need to move on to session 3. So thank you so much for being so comprehensive to both of our speakers in our session 2. So now on to session 3, which is green finance, and I'd like to hand over to Halil Badevi, UK's base of aerospace, defence, rail and advanced manufacturing at Santander, UK.
Hello everybody, good morning and just about to the afternoon in Europe if you're joining us from Europe. So we're delighted to partner with DIT and RIA on these rail webinar series, and grateful for KTN support. Thank you, Daisy. Welcome to this session called Green Finance. So now we're here because financing is a key part of the green economy. Climate change and supporting the low carbon economy is an important part of Santander's sustainability strategy. We're also big supporter of transitioning to green economy from the environmental, social and governance, ESG, as well as financing angles. Also, Santander is committed to supporting manufacturing and rail sectors, and rail is one of our key subsectors of focus. And we have a dedicated manufacturing team who can help with how we deal with industry. I'll tell you a little bit more about on this later on. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So very quickly in terms of content. So after I introduce myself and Santander very briefly, I'd like to focus not at specific banking products so much, but what the green and clean agenda means in terms of banking and finance, and how the sector and how we're preparing to support the industry in this very important period of transition, give you our view and tell you a little bit about how we can help. So I'll talk about green economy, decarbonisation, a little bit of scene setting, green finance in terms of financing and growth, navigating the transition, and as I said, what we're doing at Santander and how we can help. Next slide, please. So before I jump onto the map, as you can see on your screens, just a quick introduction on me and Santander, because this is relevant to what we're going to talk about. So my name is Halil Badevi. I'm a chartered engineer, not a banker actually by background. I've been at Santander corporate and commercial for just over 3 years now. Prior to that, I worked in UK manufacturing sector for over 30 years in a number of manufacturing subsectors. So what do I do at Santander corporate and commercial? This is an FAQ, actually, frequently asked questions, so let's answer that. So here at Santander UK, we're committed to supporting UK manufacturing, and as I said, we have a dedicated manufacturing sector specialist team. So I work in this team and head up 4 subsectors within that, which are aerospace, defense, rail and advanced manufacturing. So our team helps with manufacturing strategy and supports Santander colleagues with their understanding of the sectors and in their dealings with the industry, so that we have the right products, propositions and approach, and we can understand the industry so we can help in the best way possible. We also support customers directly and indirectly. And again, I'll explain a bit more on that. We deliver bespoke products and solutions, and these may be financial and non-financial towards manufacturing businesses, engage with our frontline relationship colleagues and add value to customers by identifying and facilitating opportunities, both international and domestic. So that's very relevant to the multi-country presentation and conversation we are having here. So the important thing is we're committed to supporting manufacturers beyond banking, not just with banking, but lots of in lots of business dealings, especially with international corridors. So as I said, I'll tell you a little bit more on that later on. So back to the map on the screen. So Santander is one of the biggest banks in the world. We're a global banking partner with presence in key international corridors. We have around 200,000 employees globally and around 20,000 in the UK. In the UK, Santander is very well known as a mortgage lender, high street and retail and commercial bank, but we also have a corporate bank, and that's where I'm coming from. So obviously we are a bank, so we provide a wide spectrum of financial and banking services, but also the non-banking support which the businesses need in terms of dealing, exporting, dealing internationally, really. So and two of our strengths is actually our international reach and capability, and corridor and sectors focus. We have a number of corridor specialists as well as sector specialists. So my corridor specialists will specialize in different countries, and they can help and assist with trading between UK and those corridors. And we do cover many of the global trade flows. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of a green economy, so obviously building a green economy will require substantial and targeted investment, policy support, reduce costs and risks to establish the demand and fund supply. So it's all about, as we know, decarbonisation and sustainability, with all the targets which we have in multiple countries as well as UK. You know, clean hydrogen, electrification, renewables, reducing waste, and careful use of resources which are limited on Earth. So innovation and development of green and sustainable products and solutions is absolutely key, and these are leading to work opportunities and economic prospects in many parts of the world. So we can expect major changes in how we travel, how we manufacture, how we live and work going forward. And the important considerations are looking at opportunities, making use of opportunities, correctly evaluating risks, economic, environmental and social impacts, and the critical success factors really for companies making this transition to clean, zero emissions is, you know, having the right vision, ability and willingness to adapt and change, having the technical and commercial viability in whatever they're involved with, risk, again, defining, having the right appetite and managing risks correctly, and of course having the funding to fund the pay for the transition and growth, and what support, help and support is available along this journey. So the company's ecosystem, their suppliers, their customers, their contacts is absolutely key, and this is a key area that we're involved with to try and help companies in lots of different ways on top of the usual banking and finance services. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So financing and growth, again, you know, these are some of the things that matter, and the considerations relating to financing and growth of green technologies and products. So, as I mentioned, the support system is very important. This consists of typically governments, organizations, banking and finance, and other parts of the industry. Our duty is really to, and desire is to follow developments, learn, understand what's going on so that we can provide the right support. R&D is critically important, which we are helping to support and finance. Understanding the complexity, scale of requirements, and again, defining the risks is very, very important in being able to support. And companies have a duty, I think, in correctly presenting themselves to financing organizations so that the requirements and risks and opportunities are correctly identified so that the right support can be given. The important thing here is that also government support. The UK government green finance strategy recognizes the role of the financial sector in delivering global and domestic climate and environmental objectives. So the UK's national green finance strategy is to align private sector finance flows with clean, environmental and sustainable and resilient growth. And there are three important parts for this. These are shown at the bottom of the slide. So the three elements are greening finance, which is all about integrating finance into integrating opportunities into financial decision making. Second one is financing green. This is accelerating finance to support a delivery of UK's carbon targets, really, so that the objectives can be met. So, and lastly, thirdly, is capturing the opportunity. This is to ensure that financial services capture the domestic and international commercial opportunities. So that's good news. So there's a lot happening in the working towards supporting the industry with financing. So that's the key thing for me to try and illustrate. Can we have the next slide, please? Right. So in terms of Santander view, so our purpose is to help people and businesses to prosper. So we recognize that a strong, healthy society, businesses depend on strong and healthy society. And the main thing is that Santander UK is committed to creating strong businesses that is not achieved at the expense of the environment. So that's a very important thing. And that means that we're prepared to stop providing financial services to certain types of companies in order to help with the effort. And I'll give you an example of that a bit further down. So now climate change and supporting low carbon economy is key part of Santander's sustainability strategy. And as I said, we're committed to supporting manufacturing, and rail is a specific subsector of focus for us. So the key message here really is I'm trying to demonstrate that have the understanding, we care, and we're committed to supporting, and it's genuine and real. I'll illustrate some of this in the following slides a bit later on. Thank you. Next slide, please. So our sustainability strategy has 5 pillars, as you can see on the slide. I've just highlighted some of the items which are directly relevant to here, just to illustrate. So driving sustainable economic growth is there in 2. Then in 4 we have upholding the highest ethical standards, which is very important for us. And then the 5th pillar, we have climate change and supporting the low carbon economy clearly stated, and that's to help reduce our environmental footprint. Next slide, please. So just a few more selected credentials, really examples to demonstrate our interest in involvement. You know, UK cycle schemes, all the electricity we use is 100% green. 99.3 of our waste is recycled or diverted. Net zero ambitions wise, we set ambitions to net zero by 2050, and 120 billion euros have been committed by Santander Group to green financing by 2025. So that's 120 billion by 2025. Santander in 2020 was a top UK lender in the renewable energy sector by number of transactions and second by deal amount. So there's quite a lot going on there. And the important thing is, if you go to the next slide, please. So, yeah, so Santander is founding member of the Net Zero Banking Alliance, which has been formed with 43 of the world's leading banks coming together. So this is to mobilize the financial support necessary to build a global zero emissions economy and deliver the goals of the Paris Agreement, and to accelerate the transition to net zero economy. So the commitments of this Net Zero Banking Alliance include helping to transition all operational attribute greenhouse gas emissions from their lending and investment portfolios to align with pathways to net zero by 2050 or sooner, and setting intermediate targets as well, which we have for 2025, for example. So, and to facilitate necessary transition and prioritize client engagement and offering products and services to provide support. So by 2030, Santander will have stopped providing financial services to power generation clients who have more than 10% of their revenues dependent on thermal coal, as well as eliminating all exposure to thermal coal mining worldwide, aligning its power generation portfolio with Paris Agreement, and the group will set decarbonisation targets for other material sectors no later than September 2020. This includes oil and gas, transport, which is very relevant to our topic here, and mining and metals. So, you know, this is just to sort of demonstrate that, you know, we're committed to continuing our leadership position in renewables, as well as leveraging origination capabilities into issue more green bonds, develop green products for our customers, including green mortgages, energy efficient loans, loans to install solar panels, electric vehicles, hydrogen, low carbon agriculture, all sorts of things like that. That's next slide, please. So how can we help beyond banking? You know, I mentioned that we are a bank, so we can naturally help with, you know, wide spectrum of banking and finance items, which we are. Now, beyond banking bit is very, very important for us, because although finance is critical and important, it isn't the only thing that is needed to make things happen. So we aim to provide end-to-end support by providing different solutions and platforms to businesses to help them trade, adding our sectoral knowledge, insights and connectivity in using our whole ecosystem, which is global, by the way. So our global ecosystem includes banking and non-banking partners to support businesses globally, This includes universities, trade organizations, government, companies. Obviously, our banking colleagues in other parts of the world and Europe are ready to help. So international opportunities are huge, I think, and not all companies are considering these for different reasons. So more support is needed to help them to be ready and also to tap into access some of these opportunities. And that's one of our strengths and commitments. So, yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much. So really just last sentence is, I think the future belongs to companies really who are strategic, who are opportunistic, who can adapt and innovate and have the right purpose, and I should say have the right network really to help them grow and trade internationally. So next slide, which is thank you slide. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we would love to be able to assist and collaborate. So please feel free to get in touch using the details on the slide, which belongs to mine and my colleague Monica Gayak. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Funnily enough, I was about to say the same thing, as managed to put that in the chat. We'll be going to direct people to get in touch with you, as I am very aware that we are a little bit over time, but it was such a fascinating presentation. So thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat to us about all the opportunities that are linked to the green economy, and that look, I think, at the innovation and the economic boost that it can generate is especially key in the context of the pandemic. So it's really helpful to have you come along and present on the topic. As I said, we are very over time. So if you do need to leave, we completely understand. Feel free to get in touch, as we said, through DIT directly or through any of the details that our speakers have given. I think we will take maybe just one question. If we still have our former speakers on. Alfredo, I don't know if you're still with us. We have an interesting question about hydrogen-based trains, if you're happy to answer that. So why choose hydrogen over battery? And what are the main challenges? And this is something that I myself have been discussing a lot recently. So why hydrogen rather than battery?
Well, hydrogen makes many sense for replacing diesel trains, where you are speaking about, let's say, over 100 kilometers long lines without catenary. In that terms, is the only feasible solution. In speaking about refueling time needed, and the range, of course, that could reach almost over 600 or up to 800 in the case of our train. And the challenge is it was advanced before. And for me, it's a challenge of refueling stations that requires a commitment coming from the rest of actors in the sector, mainly the infra managers or the operator companies. And there is also the challenge of the standards. We need to gather around the same table all the stakeholders in the railway sector and work on a joint standard, speaking about hydrogen within the railway sector. And this will for sure give many confidence to the sector, and we will ease to reduce the price of the systems, as long as we reach a standardized fuel cells, standardized tanks, and everything will make more sense in an economic term.
Wonderful, thank you, really comprehensive. Ralph, do you want to come in on this one at all, given the focus on hydrogen?
I agree to Alfredo, of course. And what we should not forget, if we want to go really far distances on batteries, we have to have a lot on board. And then we discuss limiting factors like axle load again. So I think Alfredo was absolutely right. There's a certain range that makes sense for batteries. And if you go beyond that, then we talk certainly hydrogen, yes.
Marvellous, thank you. We do have to close. I'm aware that we've already had some people who have had to run out, so we completely understand, but thank you so much to all of our speakers. I think everyone on the call would agree that this has been a hugely fascinating series of presentations, and really highlights how that international collaboration is the key to unlocking, I think, the potential of this, the work that is taking place, and how we can maximise that climate change mitigation opportunity that we're all facing. So thank you all for taking the time. Please do get in touch with the Department for International Trade centrally or the different markets for any further information or to get answers to any questions that we weren't able to get to. Please do connect in with me either via KTN or via LinkedIn. And we do have another webinar coming up in this series, the third webinar in this series, which will take place on the 14th of June. And that will be focused on one of my favourite topics, rail innovation and research. So thank you again and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Bye-bye.